Most people aren't ignoring you because they're rude. They're ignoring you because of how you talk. You feel unheard, unseen, like your words bounce off walls instead of landing in hearts. But here's the hard truth. The way you communicate might be pushing people away without you realizing it. It's not your voice. It's not your ideas. It's not your value. It's the delivery, the energy, and the intent behind it all. So today, we're uncovering 5 hidden communication habits that quietly repel people, and how changing just a few things can make others lean in instead of tuning out. Because when people actually want to hear you, everything in your relationships, work, and confidence changes. Let's get into it. You talk to be heard, not to connect. Let's start with something subtle, but powerful. Most people speak because they want to be heard. They want to be seen. They want someone to validate that their thoughts and feelings matter. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's human. But here's what happens when that becomes your default mode. You stop paying attention to how the other person is experiencing the conversation. You talk at them. You vent without invitation. You hijack the energy of the room without realizing it. You speak from a place of emotional need rather than relational connection. And the result? People listen, but not deeply. Or worse, they just shut down because people don't want to feel like a sounding board for your inner world. They want a dialogue, not a monologue. So how do you change this? Shift your intention. Before you open your mouth, ask yourself, am I here to connect or just to express? Am I allowing space for someone else's voice or just trying to get mine out? The people who are most heard in this world aren't the loudest. They're the ones who know when to speak, how to listen, and how to make others feel seen in the process. Speak to connect, not to control, not to unload, just to connect. That's when people start leaning in. You repeat yourself too much. This one's so common, and most people don't even notice they're doing it. You say the same thing over and over, the same complaint about your boss, the same story about your childhood, the same frustration with your partner, your parents, or your life. And you think you're venting, processing, getting it off your chest. But to others, it sounds like a broken record. You're not wrong for needing to express. But expression without reflection becomes repetition, and repetition becomes white noise. Eventually, people just stop listening, not because they don't care, but because they've already heard it 10 times. So how do you break the loop? Ask 2 powerful questions. What do I want to come from sharing this? Do you want empathy, solutions, understanding, or are you just airing it out again? What part of this I haven't taken responsibility for yet? Repetition often means you're stuck in the same story because you haven't claimed your power in it. It's not that your story doesn't matter, it's that your growth matters more. And when you speak from a place of growth, people listen, because now you're not just repeating your pain, you're transforming it. You overshare before you've earned trust. Let's talk about vulnerability. It's trendy now, right? Be vulnerable, be real, share your truth. And yes, in some cases, vulnerability can be powerful. It builds intimacy, connection, and depth, but only when it's mutual. Oversharing too early, before trust is built, can make people feel awkward, overwhelmed, or even unsafe. You go too deep, too fast. You share your darkest trauma with someone you just met. You think, I'm being honest. But what you're really doing is trying to create closeness through intensity, not connection. And real connection isn't built through emotional flooding. It's built through mutual safety. So here's the better way. Start with small shares. A challenge you've worked through. A belief you've changed. Watch how the other person responds. Do they open up? Do they pull back? Let trust build like layers, not leaps. Because when you overshare before someone's ready to hold it, it doesn't draw them closer. It makes them step back. Not because they're judging you, but because they didn't sign up to be your therapist or your emotional sponge. So practice something most people skip. Emotional pacing. Pace your depth. Match their energy. Let the bond grow naturally. And when trust is truly earned, that's when your vulnerability becomes a gift, not a burden. You interrupt without realizing it. We've all done it. You're in a conversation. You're excited. You have something to add. So you jump in. You interrupt. You finish their sentence. You cut them off with your story. You talk over them, not out of rudeness, but out of eagerness. But here's what it does. It sends a subtle message. My thoughts are more important than yours. Even if that's not your intention, that's how it lands. And over time, people stop feeling safe around you. They stop opening up because they know they won't get to finish their thought. So how do you fix it? Train yourself to pause. Let someone finish. Don't rush in. Don't preload your response. Wait. Sometimes a few seconds of silence creates more trust than all the words in the world. When you give someone space to fully express, without interruption, it's like saying, I respect your voice. I value your words. I'm not just waiting for my turn. That's when people feel heard, and that's when they start listening to you in return. Because respect creates resonance, and silence, when used well, is one of the most powerful communication tools on earth. You use conversations to self-regulate. Sometimes we speak not to connect, but to cope. You're anxious, so you fill the silence. You're unsure, so you talk too much. You feel lonely or unseen, so you start oversharing, over-explaining, over-justifying. And while your words might make you feel better, they start making other people feel uneasy. Because now the conversation isn't about connecting. It's about you regulating your nervous system through them. And whether they know it or not, people can feel it. It's a subtle emotional weight. It feels off. It doesn't feel safe. So what's the shift? Before you speak, check in with your emotional state. Am I grounded? Am I present? Am I speaking from clarity or from chaos? Because the most magnetic communicators, they're not just eloquent. They're regulated. They're calm. They're grounded. They bring a sense of safety into the space, and that's why people listen. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be centered. Because the energy behind your words speaks louder than the words themselves. Final thoughts. You're not being ignored because you're not valuable. You're being ignored because you haven't mastered the art behind the message. And once you learn it, people start paying attention. Not because you shout, not because you overshare, not because you dominate the room, but because you've done the inner work. You've slowed down. You've centered yourself. You've learned to speak not just from your mouth, but from your presence. So if you feel like no one's listening, don't get louder. Get quieter, more intentional, more curious, and most of all, get present. Because when you become someone who listens well, paces well, connects deeply, and speaks only when it matters, people lean in, not because they have to, but because they want to hear you. Let's become better by learning how to truly communicate. If this message helped you see communication in a new way, do me a favor. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're ready to keep growing, keep learning, and keep becoming someone people want to listen to, there's more content coming your way. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.